I never thought I'd end up standing in the middle of my own field, soaked to the bone in a thunderstorm, pointing my father's old hunting rifle at two men dragging my HOA neighbor Karen across the mud. I still remember her screaming my name, lightning cracking open the sky above us, and a gunshot ripping through the rain. And the crazy part, all of it, every single insane moment, started because of my chickens. When I moved out to Maple Hills County, all I wanted was quiet. Peace. A small slice of sanity after years of apartment living, loud neighbors, and rules about everything from where you could park to what color your mailbox should be. I bought a 5-acre property with a tired little farmhouse and a barn that leaned slightly to the left, like it gave up on life halfway through. It was perfect. I fixed the place up, planted herbs, patched the roof, and built a small coop behind the barn for my two chickens, Daisy and Cluck Norris. They weren't just pets. They were part of why I left the city. They made me feel grounded again. But of course, peace never lasts when a Karen is nearby. The first time I met Karen Mitchell, she marched across the gravel road like she owned the county. Sunglasses on even though it was cloudy, and a clipboard hugged against her chest like a badge of authority. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She didn't even breathe in the smell of fresh soil. She just pointed at my coop and said, "What exactly is that?" "My chickens," I said, grinning like an idiot, thinking she was just curious. She wasn't. "This is an HOA community," she snapped. "Livestock is not permitted." I told her politely at first that my land wasn't part of the HOA. The Maple Ridge boundary ended before my fence, something I verified before buying the place. She looked at me like I had just personally insulted her ancestors. "That's not possible. Everyone follows the rules," she insisted. Well, I said not me. She spun on her heel and stomped away, muttering something about checking the records. At the time, I shrugged it off. Neighborhood drama wasn't my thing, but some people treat power like oxygen. Take it away and they choke. The strange little thing started first. A printed HOA rulebook stuffed in my mailbox. A warning notice taped to my barn door, except it wasn't official, just a Word document printed on cheap paper. And then the pictures. I caught Karen taking photos of my chickens like she was building a court case. One morning, she stood by the coop snapping pictures with her phone. I walked up and said, "Morning, Karen." She didn't look up. "These are going to the HOA. We'll see how long you keep those animals." I reminded her again that my land wasn't under HOA jurisdiction, but she wasn't listening. Or maybe she didn't care. People like Karen don't back off just because they're wrong. And then came the morning that changed everything. The sound of police sirens cutting through my yard tires, crunching on gravel. When I looked outside, 2 patrol cars were parked by the coop. Karen stood beside them with her arms folded like she'd personally summoned justice. She pointed at me, shouting, "She's keeping livestock on restricted property. This is a violation." The officers walked toward me, calm but firm. One asked if the chickens were mine. Before Karen could launch another speech, I got my deed and boundary map from the porch drawer documents I'd kept for years, more out of habit than paranoia. The officer flipped through the papers, and I watched his expression shift. He turned to Karen and asked, "Ma'am, when did your HOA last update its boundary map?" Karen froze. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't know what to say. A few minutes later, the officer returned and told her flat out that my property wasn't part of Maple Ridge. I was exempt from every rule she worshipped. She turned pale, muttered something unintelligible, and stormed off. The officers apologized for the trouble and left. I thought that would be the end of it. Silly me. Later that day, I found a crumpled letter near my fence, something Karen dropped in her dramatic exit. It was addressed to the HOA board, written in angry red pen. "If the board refuses to act," she wrote, "I will personally ensure compliance is enforced." So no, she didn't stop. She escalated. I started noticing footprints near my coop. One night I found the latch undone and Daisy trembling under a bush. I set up a small trail camera thinking maybe raccoons had figured out how to open latches. I was wrong. The next morning I skimmed through the footage and froze. There they were, Karen and the HOA inspector. A stiff man named Edward Phillips lurking around my coop at nearly midnight. Karen tugged at the latch while Phillips looked around nervously. I took the footage straight to Sheriff Wallace. a kind older man who'd been in Maple Hills long before Maple Ridge existed. He recognized Karen immediately. "She's filed more complaints than anyone in this county," he said with a sigh. "I'll pay her a visit." I felt a little relief. A little, not enough, because things got darker fast. A few nights later I woke to the smell of smoke. I ran outside and found a post near the coop, smoldering charred black. Someone had tried to set my fence on fire. I replaced the post, installed more cameras, added a metal latch, anything to protect my animals. That night I barely slept, listening to every creak and whisper outside. Old Mr. Jensen, my neighbor, 2 lots down, came by when he saw the damage. He tapped his cane against the ground and said, "You can't fight crazy with anger, you fight it with truth." I didn't know what he meant then. I would. One night around 10, a black pickup rolled to a stop by the ditch. Its headlights were off. A man got out and shined a flashlight across my property. Then a woman's voice came from the truck, a voice I recognized instantly. Karen. The next day the sheriff confirmed he'd talked to her again. She'd been agitated. That was putting it lightly. Everything spiraled after that. Karen showed up with Phillips to inspect my land again. I blocked the camera, told them to leave, but she spat. "You'll regret this." A few nights later I heard a loud crash down the road. Screaming. I ran outside and saw lights flickering in Karen's house. Phillips stormed past her, shouting something about going too far. Karen was sobbing on the porch. The next morning her SUV was gone, replaced by a giant red "for sale" sign. But that wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far worse, because even though the house looked empty, someone was still inside. I saw shadows in her windows. Someone knocked on my door late one evening. 3 slow, heavy knocks, but no one was there. Just a warning note taped to my frame. "You don't know what she's hiding. Keep your animals inside. Don't trust anyone who says they're from the HOA." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I listened to footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling my house. And a whisper, faint but unmistakable, "You think you've won." The next morning a deputy checked on my coop after another anonymous complaint. It was Karen's number again. He shook his head. "If she keeps this up, there'll be charges." But then Phillips came to my house, alone, pale, sweating. "Karen's lost it," he told me. "She found an old file. There's a water pipeline running through your land that feeds Maple Ridge. It's illegal. It was rerouted when the subdivision was built without an easement. If you found out, the HOA would owe thousands." I blinked. That was a lot. So I dug where he pointed, and I hit metal. A humming metal pipe buried deep, still in use. Sheriff Wallace confirmed it. The county officers confirmed it. Maple Ridge had been using my property illegally for years, and someone didn't want that known. That same night, a tall man in a dark jacket snuck onto my land and tried to cut the pipe. He bolted when the sheriff arrived, but that was when I started wondering, why did Wallace show up so fast, and why did he look nervous? The next morning Karen's house was wide open, empty. A sticky note on the fridge read, "Don't let them find me." Then a man claiming to be a state environmental agent, Agent Kellen, visited my property and asked for the files. He said I was being watched. He said Phillips was one of them. He said to keep my lights on and not open the door for anyone. Something felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. That night Karen called me. Her voice was shaky, terrified. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not just the HOA, it's Hydroworks, the contractor. They don't want the pipe discovered. They don't want the dumping discovered. There's evidence." The line cut out. Then the storm rolled in. Wind howled. Lightning tore open the sky and rain hammered the house. I locked every window, every door. But I still heard it, the SUV idling near the ditch. Then footsteps. Then shouting. "We just want the documents. Bring them out." Lightning flashed, and there she was. Karen, knees in the mud, hands tied, her hair plastered across her face, eyes wide with terror. The man behind her shoved her forward. "Tell her where they are," he shouted. Karen screamed. "Emily, run." I didn't run. I grabbed my father's old rifle, rusty but loaded. The moment I stepped outside, the rain swallowed me whole. I raised the gun, yelling, "Let her go." The man swung his flashlight toward me. "Stay out of this." Not a chance. Lightning cracked overhead again, and the second man stepped from the SUV holding a gun. "Drop it," he yelled. The world exploded with thunder and a gunshot. I hit the ground. Mud splashed across my face. The men ran back to the SUV tires spinning in the storm. I crawled toward Karen, shaking. "Karen, Karen." Her eyes fluttered open. She whispered, "The other box. East Field." Then she went still. I don't remember how long I knelt there. I just remember the rain washing over her face and the storm swallowing her last breath. Deputies arrived too late. They took Karen's body. They took my statement. But as the ambulance pulled away, I saw something in Sheriff Wallace's eyes. Fear. Guilt. Something dark. That night when the storm eased, I grabbed a shovel and walked to the East Field. I found a lantern half buried near the old oak tree. I dug for 20 minutes before my shovel hit wood. A new crate. Clean. Recently buried. Inside were files, not construction documents, not invoices, but bribery records, illegal dumping reports, secret payments, and on several pages, Sheriff Wallace's signature. The man I trusted was part of the cover-up. I ran back home clutching the documents. Minutes later, a cruiser stopped outside. Wallace stepped out. Expression cold flashlight pointed at my porch. "Evening," he called. "Mind if I come in?" I backed away from the window. "No." "Well," he said, "we both know how this ends." He rammed the door. Wood cracked. I bolted through the back, sprinting into the field with the folder pressed to my chest. I slipped into the ditch just as Wallace's flashlight beam swept past. Then headlights approached from the opposite side. A second car. Out stepped Mr. Jensen holding his old shotgun. "Drop the light, Wallace." Wallace froze. "You don't want to do this, Jensen." "I already did," Jensen growled. "Step away from the girl." Wallace moved fast, too fast. He lunged for his gun. The blast shook the entire field. Wallace fell backward into the mud, his flashlight rolling until it shined directly on me. I stood there shaking, soaked, trembling, barely able to breathe. The deputies from the neighboring county arrived minutes later. Jensen had called them before coming. They took the files. They took Wallace's body. They took statements until sunrise. By morning, the scandal hit the news. Hydroworks officials were arrested. Agent Kellen, the fake investigator, was arrested. The HOA faced investigations for corruption and illegal land use. Phillips's car was found abandoned with stolen files inside. Karen's death was ruled a homicide, but she was officially cleared of wrongdoing. I didn't celebrate. How could I? My chickens still clucked every morning, unaware of everything that happened, the lies, the threats, the violence. I rebuilt my fence. I planted wildflowers where the last crate was buried, purple ones, Karen's favorite color according to old HOA records. A week later, a letter appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Just one sentence. "You did the right thing. Keep the land clean. P." Maybe it was Phillips. Maybe someone else. I don't know. All I know is sometimes late at night when the wind shifts just right, I still hear the faint hum of water running deep underground, like a reminder that some secrets never stop moving. And if this whole nightmare taught me anything, it's this. Sometimes the people obsessed with enforcing rules are the ones hiding the biggest sins.